Today on the show, we have Vickey Barron with Compass in New York City. Let me tell you more about Vickey. Now, when Vickey Barron talks, the real estate world listens. She has earned the respect and admiration of her fellow brokers, along with an impressive base of buyers and sellers. Vickey has been featured in leading trade press articles and network TV shows, including Wall Street Journal, The Real Deal, New York Times, HGTV's Selling New York. She's also played a key role in the dramatic growth of the new development market in New York City by commanding and achieving record-breaking sales prices. Some marvel at how she is able to get it all done. Her answer is, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. I could not agree more. And by the way, Vickey's super humble. She's also been one of the top agents in New York City by volume. Probably she is already as well. She's been doing that before. Also in the country, she's been one of the top agents. She is a very, very big deal. And we are so honored to have Vickey on the show. Vickey, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And that's a very nice introduction. And I just truly believe that if we all come together and just share, I tend to get involved a lot in our local board and helping agents. Some of them are new, some have been around for a long time, but kind of stumbling, trying to figure out what to do and how to pivot. So anytime I'm invited to where we can have a candid conversation, because it's not an easy business, but it can be a fun business if you don't take yourself so seriously and you just keep your eye on the ball and remember that whatever you do, it's all going to be fine. I just think there are too many people that end up with too much stress because ego gets in the way and a lot of pressure. And I think that slows them down. So if I can do anything today is we'll have a conversation and share kind of how not to get into that trap and stay authentic and just have fun. And I'm a believer of abundance. So there's enough business to go around. You just have to figure out what part of that business makes sense for you.
Well said. And I also want to just peel back the curtain for our listeners for a moment. When I was chatting with Vickey just before we started, the very first thing she said, which was just really indicative of your character and your motivation. You were like, I just want to provide value to your audience and maybe help them. I enjoy helping other realtors learn to do better. And obviously you just said a version of that right now. And it is not always the case that when I have these types of interviews that people are as willing to be helpful. So I think that is probably not a coincidence why you're so successful. This act of like givers get kind of philosophy. So and we should also mention too that Vickey is in the process of writing a book and it's not out yet, but I would encourage all of our listeners to make sure that when Vickey's book does come out, we will be promoting it on our show. We'll be promoting it on our Facebook group. And we will also, anyone that's interested can reach out to Vickey, and I'm sure she can put you on a list or at least make you aware when the book is available, because she is somebody who instructs agents. And so this should be a very, very interesting and exciting book. So we're happy to promote that once that happens. But Vickey, I'd like to start all the way back at the beginning to hear about how you got into real estate and why.
Well, when I was 21 years old, I was not in real estate, but I did buy a very, very small piece of real estate in Southern California because I realized, why rent if you could buy? And to this day, I'm kind of confused why Bank of America gave me a mortgage, but they fortunately did. So I was able to put down a little down payment and got started. And I bought it and I fixed it up, lived there for 10 months, sold it, made a decent profit. I think I paid $59,000 and sold it for $79,000. So I'm like, oh,
it's a nice return for 10 months.
So, and then I bought another one and I kind of kept doing that. And people in California say, you should get into real estate. I just love looking at a property and seeing the potential. So I moved a lot because this is kind of my hobby, so to speak, but I never really got into real estate. I worked in healthcare until I moved to New York City 22 years ago. And I thought I was coming to New York for 2 years and I wanted to get to know the city. And I thought, wait a minute, if I'm going to be in New York for 2 years, what better way to get to know the city than to get a real estate license and literally get to know the city? So I went and interviewed. My resume was not so impressive because no one wanted to hire me. And my favorite is a very large firm. The manager said to me, "We don't have a desk, call us back in a year." And I said, "Wow, that's so exciting that you don't have a desk. You must be doing really well. And I'm thrilled to hear that. I have one question for you." She said, "What's that?" I said, "It's very important for me to really find the right match, the right house, if you will. So if you would be so kind to give me 10 minutes out of your day just to have an eye to eye, sit down, quick chat, because if it's the right fit, I'm willing to wait. And if it's not, then I'll accept a desk somewhere else. Does that make sense to you?" She said, yes. She invited me in. And when I sat in front of her, I seriously had a lot of questions because I had no idea. I didn't know my way around New York. I didn't have friends in New York. I mean, I used to come to New York. I worked in healthcare, so I would come for a lot of medical conferences, but I didn't know anyone in New York. So I didn't understand the lay of the land, period, or real estate. So I said to her, like, I have a question. You said you don't have a desk, but as I look around, I see a lot of empty desks. So where are these agents? Are they out selling? Are they sleeping in? Are they, well, like, can you help me understand how it works? And I must have had 20 different questions for her because I was really curious about how it all worked. And then I asked her, describe to me the top 5 agents in this office. Who are they? What makes them tick? How do they function? And she answered it. And then I said, now talk to me about the 5 agents that you're contemplating getting rid of, that a desk may open up that someday I'll get to have. Tell me about them. And she just started laughing. She said, you are hilarious. Like you first of all, she asked me if I had a resume. I said, I don't have a resume. You don't have a desk. I thought we were doing an eyeball thing. I wasn't coming in for an interview because you didn't have a desk. I just wanted to meet you and say hello. So anyway, she offered me the position and I got started. And in that interview, I felt kind of bad, like I tricked her because she offered me a desk after she said she didn't have one. So I said, I should probably disclose that I do not have any connections in New York, never sold real estate. I don't. Aunt Harriet on Park Avenue is not going to call me to sell her 7-room. She said, well, how are you going to get business? And I said, that is a very good question. And honestly, I wish I had a good answer for you, but I don't. But what I can tell you is I do understand people and I understand business, and I'm confident I'll figure something out. So fortunately, that really stupid answer still got me a desk because it didn't sound very smart. Like I'm over here
Well,
saying I have no idea.
I want to jump in for a sec. I actually do think it's incredibly smart for one particular reason is it was honest. And I think this is an industry, especially around the recruiting realtors or interviewing part, where honesty doesn't always flow both ways, and it doesn't even flow one way sometimes. And I think I recruit realtors, and so I was just trying to put myself in the position of the woman that you were referencing. And I was thinking, I would love to have somebody come in with those kind of questions. I would love it if people were asking and being that honest, going, I don't have, and here's what I don't have, but I'm confident that I can get it figured out. So I actually think those were amazing. I mean, clearly they were good answers in the sense that, they wanted you on the team, but I know you were sort of joking by saying they're stupid answers, but I think those were great answers personally.
Well, thank you. But you know what you just touched on that's very important is what I'm about to share with you next was truly the cracking the code, if you will. Because so one would ask, all right, so you got your desk, then what? Well, I was in a training class and I was sent home to do homework by calling 3 for sale by owners. And I procrastinated. I had an 11-year-old at the time, and I was 9 o'clock at night, I went, oh my word, I forgot to do my homework. And I can't go in the class and lie and say I did it if I didn't, and it'll look disrespectful if I don't do it. So I had to quickly hop on a phone, and I got machines, answer machines, and it was a woman that said, this is John and Mary. We're not home right now. If you're calling about the apartment, no brokers. Beep. So I just instinctively, I just wanted to get through my homework. I wasn't trying to sell her apartment. I was like 2 hours in the business. So I said to her, Mary, hi, it's me, Vicky. And here's the truth. I heard the part about no brokers, and I am an agent, but don't hang up. Because the truth is, I just simply have a quick question for you. And if you would be kind enough to call me back tomorrow preferably before 2 o'clock, I promise it'll be painless. Here's my number. Look forward to the call. So then I went through and did my other 2 calls. And when I got in the class, they called upon me. How'd it go? I told them what happened. The whole class laughed. They said, you're from California. This is New York. They're going to eat you alive. You don't leave a message. She's never calling you back. And I kind of sunk in my seat. And I thought, why is she not calling back? I was really kind on the phone. I think she'll call me back. So it was so long ago. We really didn't even have cell phones then. So I went back to my desk at lunchtime, and the little red light was on. And sure enough, it was Mary. And when I called her back, she wasn't so kind. She said, you have a question. What is it? Well, I didn't kind of think it through, so I wasn't sure what my question was. So I had to quickly come up with a question. So I just started asking her questions about her apartment. And I realized instantly she loved talking about her apartment. Like, she just lit up. Like, this
Sure.
lady went from mean to nice in a flat second. So then when she went on, here comes to your point of the honesty. She said to me, I suppose you're going to tell me now you have a buyer for my apartment. And I said, Mary, honestly, with the windowed kitchen, the south views, the granite, the Sub-Zero, I honestly wish I could tell you I have a buyer for your apartment, but the honest truth is I'm thinking I don't even have a business card, lady. I'm more or less a buyer. But I said, I do not have a buyer for your apartment today. But Mary, doesn't mean I won't have one tomorrow. But I have to ask you one more question. She said, what is it? I said, you have been so generous with your time and so kind with your description of the apartment. First of all, I'm confused that it's not sold, but that's another story. I have one other question. Do you mind if I just poke my head in? I just want to see that kitchen with the window and that southern view. I promise I won't bother you. I just want to quickly look at it. That way, if I come across a buyer, at least I can say I've seen it. She said, okay, sure, come by at 4:30. And when I went by, all I had was a tablet and a pen. I mean, again, I was now maybe 8 hours in the business. So I walked through her apartment, and I just had an honest conversation, and I didn't try to sell her. In fact, I encouraged her. I'm like, you are going to sell this. When's your next open house? How'd you get your pricing? And do you mind if I give you a few tips? And I took notes about the apartment, and then I gave her a few tips. Open your blinds, pick up that pile of stuff. And Mary, you were going to have this sold next week. I got to go. And she called me within 2 weeks, and she woke up and said, I don't want to be a realtor, and I want to hire someone. And you were so kind and so honest that my husband and I would like to meet with you. So that's how it started. I got started through the for sale by owners, and then one would refer another, and then I just kept calling FSBOs, and that's how I started.
It's really an incredible story for a lot of different reasons. But again, that authentic honesty, radical honesty, maybe we'll call it, although I just think honesty would suffice. I know there's a new term, radical honesty, where I think, well, what does regular honesty mean if not fully honest? But that's a perfect example of telling the truth and really appealing to somebody from a non-sales perspective, which I think not the vast majority of people, myself included, do not like to be sold. I like to be explained. I like information. I like to also make my own decisions, and I don't like to feel pressure. Now, there is a certain subset of the population that likes to be persuaded, and that's fine. But I don't think that's the majority of people. So I actually think that is a great approach for all of our listeners to consider, and clearly it worked for you. And so from there, you got your license, you started finding clients, and then you continued to grow, and you didn't just grow in a small way. You grew in a very, very, very big way. So why do you think it was that you got to be one of the very top producing agents in New York City when there's thousands upon thousands? What do you think it is that maybe you did differently than the other brokers or agents that you knew?
Well, I think when I really think about it, which I have putting this book together, it's the best therapy ever, because you take the time to reflect and try to, look at where you were, where you're at, and where you're going. And when I really think about it, I think for me, it was almost a breath of fresh air, because the people responded well to just someone that saw them and cared about them. And I was curious about so much that, I really didn't know what I was doing. So there was no ego, because how can you have an ego when I truly didn't know? When I think back on it, I'm like, how did I even do? And I say this not to brag, only to encourage anybody, because I swear to you, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So I think I did like 20 deals in my first 9 or 10 months.
That's
And
incredible.
it was, they were all lower price, because most for sale by owners are not, $5 million. So they were all, I think when I got started, they were 3, 4, $500,000. And I just kept going and going. And I worked really hard, but I loved every moment of it, because each opportunity, I believed in my heart that they would be better off. And I do believe this for sale by owners. They think it's better to sell on their own. And I really believe they will make more money if they identify the right agent to partner with, because that agent, if they do what I know they're capable of doing, when it's time to close, whatever that commission check is, will be less if you get the right agent to partner with you. I really do believe that. I don't think they make more money trying to sell on their own. So I believe that. And I think they just learned to trust in me. And I started get 96% of my business is all referrals. So I am not the agent I don't do postcard mailers. I sometimes I think I'm a little lazy, because maybe I should be doing that, but there are only so many hours in the day. And I feel that if I take the time to really care about someone and take care of them and go the extra mile, then they will tell their friends and their neighbors, and then the phone will ring, and then I can take care of that next person. So that's been my model. Although I do have colleagues that are very successful on the marketing campaign that do mass mailers. So I applaud them, and everyone has to find the lane that makes sense for them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking while you were saying that about demonstrating care. I always think that's maybe one of the most important parts of the job is demonstrating empathy, and also not managing your clients' fears or anxieties, but understanding them, and being able to counsel them through large financial decisions, buying, selling, maybe the largest financial decision they've ever made. Certainly one that comes with a lot of unfortunate stress, even in the best possible types of transactions. It's still stressful. And I'm curious, because you are such a student of human nature and just people, how you went about trying to make sure your clients were as comfortable as possible throughout the process, because of course there are ups and downs in most transactions, if not all. And there are going to be times when the client's, dealing with some undue stress or just freaking out. But how do you do that? Because I suspect you do that better than a lot of other agents.
Well, first of all, that's a great question, because the truth is, and I say this many times to agents, you can have seller A is a banker, seller B is an artist, and seller C is a widow that never had a day job. If your conversation is exactly the same with all three of them, you may get lucky and hit one, but
Right.
you have to, in an authentic way, and I tell people this, when I'm on Park Avenue selling a $12 million listing, or I'm in the Village selling a really cool fifth floor walk-up, I'm still Vickey, present at both of them, but one may be an artist, one may be a banker. My choice, the power of words is one of the classes I love teaching. You have to know how to communicate with someone and what their needs are and how they're going to hear you. And it's always good to ask people, how do you like to be communicated with? What is and here's another thing, talk about honesty. There was a pretty big listing, and the woman said to me, Vickey, I shouldn't be admitting this, but it's the truth. She said, Vickey, I've noticed that the other two agents we're interviewing, when I email them, they respond like that. And when I email you, you take a really long time to get back to me. And I said to her, oh, Nancy, you know what? It's honestly the truth, what you're saying. And I would love to tell you right now, like if you hire me, that's going to change, but it may not change. So she looked shocked. And I said, but can I explain why? And she said, why? And I said, I've been in your living room for 45 minutes. I haven't looked at my phone once. I said, so when I'm with you, you have me 100%. And when I'm with a buyer, they have me 100%. When I'm showing someone through your apartment, I'm not looking at my Instagram. I'm not looking at my email. I'm looking at them. I'm listening to them. I'm answering their questions, and they have me. So unfortunately, some people, maybe I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm not good at that. I just can't do it. It's not my forte. But if you ever need me, I have someone at the office you can call. They know how to get a hold of me. But please know that I'm here and I care, but I'm not going to win the contest of getting back so quickly on that email. And she hired me, but it was the truth. It was just, and another one to talk about truth, I was on a townhouse listing, and this is actually funny. The woman said to me, Vickey, I really, really in my heart, I'd like to hire you, but I think I'm going to hire this other agent. And I said, oh, okay, well, if you feel that that's a right fit for you, then I'm sure that they will do a great job. She said, because the other agent specializes in townhouses. And she pointed out to me that on your website, you have things for sale for $350,000, like studios and stuff like that. And she only has really expensive townhouses, and that's what she specializes in.
Wow.
And she's a vice president, and you're whatever I was at the time. What are you? It's
associate or whatever. Yeah.
And I said, oh, I am so, what, you just made my day. She said, I did? I said, yes, I feel so good right now. You have no idea. She said, why? I said, because I said to myself when I entered the business, I never want to become that person that feels that they're so important that they forget about everyone, because everyone needs a place to live. And I want to be able, if you call me and your niece wants that fifth floor studio apartment, I want to be able to take care of them. So I hope 20 years from now, you'll see a low-end apartment for sale, which today, if you get on mine, I'm sure I have one right now. So I said, it just means a lot to me, but thank you so much for sharing that. Well, then I went back to my office and I told my manager what happened. And he said, Vickey, you're a senior vice president. I said, I am? He said, yes, your numbers? You don't have that on your website? I said, what does it even mean? I don't understand. What are these titles? And he said, no, you're a senior vice president. So I called the woman back and I said, listen, I just want to tell you, I not only do I appreciate your comment about the lower end apartment on my listing, but then that whole senior, apparently I'm a senior vice president. So I didn't even know that, because titles are not really that important to me, but apparently they are to some people. And thank you so much for bringing, so she called me and hired me.
Hilarious. That is, and I think there's sort of two lessons to learn here, which is number one, to have an answer ready that's an authentic, well, to have an answer ready if somebody were to say something like that, like, oh, this other agent, thought maybe they'd be a better fit because they thought you specialized in this and we really have that, and maybe you're not. And your answer was beautiful and also honest. And I think, again, that sort of ego-less approach and that full honest approach really resonates with people who don't want to be sold. And also, like, it's funny, my title is president of sales and marketing, and people go, ooh, that sounds impressive. I'm like, I made that up. Like, it's not a real thing. I mean, it's I guess if you say it long enough, people think it's something, but it is true. Like, every lender is a vice president, every loan officer I know is vice president, and so yeah. But it's a really good point, and I think it's also the lesson of playing nice in the sandbox. This idea of putting other firms down or other agents down, whether it's subtly, like maybe this person did, which really rubs me the wrong way when people do that.
Oh.
But there are people out there who will, and so I appreciate that, and I'm sure you teach agents to be their authentic selves and to not, and like you said, there is no competition. There's enough business for everyone. There's the right fit for anyone, and I'm curious on what you've seen new agents do, because you had pretty immediate success with no sphere of influence, no understanding of the New York market, limited understanding of real estate. You did your own buys and sells, which is amazing. And that is legitimate experience, of course, but doesn't necessarily translate to helping other homeowners as easily as, oh, look at my resume of all these beautiful homes I've listed and sold. But I'm curious on what you tell agents who are entering the business, who, really want to have, quicker success. Are there any tips or advice that you might give them?
Yes. I feel very strong about this. I see a lot of agents that have analysis paralysis. They look great. They come in the office, they sit there, but they don't move. Like, what are you doing? I walk by, what are you doing? They're thinking, and they're paralyzed of not making a move because they're afraid they're going to do something wrong, not do it right. And they also go after the other thing I see. Here are things that I see that I wish I could say, just stop that. One, they don't shoot for the moon. Like, why you've been in the business a month and you're going after 10, $15 million listings? Like, why? Just go sell 10 in a price point that you probably will have a better chance getting, because those 10, 15 million are going to have agents with a resume, an arm or a street long. So why would you put that pressure on yourself? Number one. Number two, get to know property. Go look at every property. So when I was relatively new, the manager that didn't have a desk that hired me asked me to give a tour. She said, Vicky, we have a van. We're going to go out and look at like 10 properties. And I just think you would be really good at giving the tour. So I have a problem saying no. Like, I had zero, what I don't know. Why is she asking me? But I just said yes. So on the tour, we were going, I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to go to 103 East 73rd Street. And it was built in 1929. And you're going to see that 40% of the apartments have double height ceiling. And what I love the most is the bay windows, and the doorman's amazing, and the tile in the lobby's gorgeous. After that, we're going to have the opportunity to see blah, 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 that was built 1960. And people said, what firm did you work for before you worked here? I said, I didn't work at any firm. They said, how do you know that? I said, because I would walk up and down the streets and I'd look at the buildings, I'd talk to the doorman, then I'd go back and I'd ask how many apartments are in there, when was it built? So I tell agents, start, if you're going to get one listing, let's say it's a 1-bedroom pre-war apartment. You should know if a buyer's out there today looking for the 1-bedroom, if there are 10 available, you should go visit every one of them. And today, if you can't physically get in, at least get online and study your competition, study those apartments. So you should know them inside and out. So I was actually successful at converting, when I'd have a listing, buyers would come in and they'd be without an agent, and I'd watch them walk around and I'd ask them questions. I'd say, talk to me. I have a question for you. How long have you been looking? Has it been 2 months, 6 months? Are you ready to jump, or where are you at? Oh, no, we just started. Well, how many apartments have you seen today? 3. Interesting. Have you seen the one on 79th Street? They said, yes. I said, don't you love that view out of the back? Was that not special? Love that. And the herringbone floors, love that. So then what else have you seen? No, we went and saw this other one. What did you like about it? Well, we like this. What did you hate about it? I like, you have a conversation and they know that you know the lay of the land. But I have agents that when you go to show an apartment, they don't even know the building, and they're selling an apartment, but they don't even know the answers to simple questions. So you have to do your homework, and you have to be interested in enough to know, you have to be knowledgeable.
Yes, I have a question with respect to showing a property to a buyer. And I know this isn't always going to be the case where you as the buyer's agent will be able to see the property ahead of time. But how often do you say, hey, I'm bringing a buyer here tomorrow. I want to get a lay of the land. I want to come in and see the property so that when my buyer does show up, I have a better understanding of what is that I don't know how common that practice is.
Okay.
For go ahead.
I'm gonna you ask really good questions. Because
Thank you.
I told you I didn't know my way around New York. I had a buyer came into a place I had listed, and this had never happened, and it's never happened since, but he asked me to go to his office. He wanted to interview me. Now, normally you get interviewed if you're going to be the listing agent, not to work with the buyer, but he wanted to interview me because he wanted to find the right agent to help he and his wife buy an apartment. So I'm sitting in Midtown, and he said, my wife and I are kind of thinking about Tribeca. Now, I was maybe 4 months in the business. Tribeca, I heard of it, but I never sold in Tribeca.
Is there a film festival there?
Anyway, he said, I'd like to go out next week and look at places in Tribeca. What did he say? Are you familiar, or have you sold in Tribeca? You don't need to lie, but there's a way to answer a question with confidence. I said, love that idea of Tribeca. Love that idea of Tribeca. I didn't say I had sold in Tribeca. I didn't say I knew where Tribeca was. I said, I love the idea of Tribeca, and let's plan on Saturday. So what I did is I did the search. I went out early the day before, went to as many of them that I could. And then what I did is I hired a driver, because in Tribeca, it's not like Midtown where it's all numbers. Like, I thought, I'm going to look foolish when I walk out of one building and not know if I should turn left or right. So
good point. Yeah, it's a great point.
And then if he starts asking me questions about where the local grocery store is, I don't know. This is my first time there. So I hired a driver that knew Tribeca like the back of his hand. And I said to him, here's the drill. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to have a buyer in here, and he or his wife may ask questions about Tribeca. And when those questions come up, and you're going to be answering them. Get it? He's like, good. I gave him a high five. I'm like, we're going to have fun. So when we got in the car and we went to the first listing, I said, now the first listing, I love the lobby. You're going to love the mosaic floor. And I introduced myself to the doorman the day before. So when he saw me, it was like a familiar face. So when we walked in, we showed the apartment. You just do your homework and spend the time without being, you have to be honest, but it's okay if you're new. They're not asking, no one asked me how long have you been in the business, ever. Well, no, that's not true. Actually, someone asked me when I got a listing, why would I give $2 million to someone that's been in the business for 14 days? Did ask me that. And I said,
yeah, which I think is a reasonable question.
Yeah, I said, for 3 very good reasons. He said, he said, why? I said, well, number one, you're under a good umbrella, meaning the firm. We have all the tools in the toolbox that you need. Number two, I am willing, because I knew he was insecure about me. So I said, I am willing to bring on the number 3 agent in my office for you as insurance. And number 3, I will be holding that umbrella and I simply bring magic. And he said, you didn't even blink. And I leaned forward and I said, nor did you. And he laughed and he gave me the listing. So sometimes you just have to have confidence. And if he doesn't hire me, I'm not going to die. Like, nothing bad happens. And when other agents get listings, why can't you celebrate them? Like, send them a note and say, I'm so happy for you that you got that listing. You're going to knock it out of the ballpark.
Yeah. Yes, boy, I'm just reeling from that. I was thinking if you wrote that scene into a script in Hollywood, they'd write back, especially with the neither did you blink thing. They'd go, well, that's not realistic, so we're not gonna. It's too dramatic. But it is that's what happened. And I wanted to ask you because a lot of times agents, I think, get caught in that they don't know how to respond to a question like that. Do you rehearse in your mind answers to objections? I don't even want to call them objections, questions.
Never.
We'll just call them questions.
Never. In fact, an agent had invited me on a pitch, which I was confused about also because I wasn't sure. I didn't know what I was doing. But she said, I think you should come with me. I'm trying to get this listing. I think you will help. I said, that's so kind of you. Great. Tomorrow we'll go. So tomorrow came, we get in the elevator and she was really nervous. Like, I could tell she was really nervous. So she said to me, are you nervous? And I said, no, but why do you ask? She said, well, I always get nervous before I go on a pitch. And she said, did you rehearse? So then I said, rehearse what? She said, well, did you rehearse your pitch? Well, I didn't know that's a thing, like rehearse a pitch. So I said to her, well, no, rehearse a pitch. So then she looked even more nervous. Like, here she invited me on and I didn't rehearse my pitch. So I said, I was serious. I said, you rehearsed a pitch? She said, yeah. I said, how could you possibly do that? She said, how could you not? I said, well, how do I know what I'm going to say if I don't know who's behind the door? Like, I don't understand that. I said, I mean, I look at comps, but I don't rehearse like what I'm going to say because I don't know when she opens the door. How do I know how to so then I got nervous because I thought, if this is what I'm going to have to do, like, to be in the business, I'm not sure. Like, I cannot memorize a script, or it would be horrible. So anyway, when we went in, the woman opened the door and she had a storyboard from the Micronesia island, which I had worked for many years and I was familiar with it. So it was unbelievable. Like, the door opened up. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that from the Micronesia island? She said,
like,
yes.
I know what that is. Yeah.
Storyboard. So it started a conversation, and then there was a book on the shelf that we started talking about that. And then we left, the woman said, you never really did a pitch. And I said, well, I asked her a lot of questions like, why are you selling? What's important to you? Talk to me. Have you gone through the process before? And she just felt comfortable and she hired us, but I didn't do it. No, I don't rehearse.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So you when you go in and meet someone for the first time, you're just looking to get a better sense of who they are, maybe by scanning kind of the room, scanning who they are, paying attention to what they say, how they talk about, and then just asking a ton of questions. And it really is, I think, the biggest compliment you can give someone is by asking them about themselves. And not everyone. Now, some people are more
Mhm.
closed and are want to just do business, and that's fine. But I think the vast majority of us, especially this time, as we're now sort of being able to get back together in person over the last year, I think people are hungry for interaction. And I don't think we ask each other as much about our lives anymore, because social media has sort of taken that part of it away, where we now, if I want to know if my friend's been on a vacation, I don't have to ask him. I can just look on Instagram or Facebook, assuming that they posted. And I think that it's taken away some of that, some of the inquisitiveness that we used to have about each other. And I think that's a really an important skill to cultivate as if you're an agent, is really being curious about who that person is, how they tick, what's important to them. And it seems like that's something that you really sort of plant your flag firmly in the ground of, is like, I want to get to know you. And that seems to be very effective for you.
And also, I think when agents go in to do a presentation, I think it's so unfortunate that they spend the majority of their time doing an infomercial. They
Yeah.
spend the majority of their time wanting to talk about how great they are and what their numbers are and why they're the best and why they need to hire them. And instead of taking that precious time to really understand who this person is and what their needs are, and and are you the right fit for them? Because sometimes we're not. Like there's sometimes like they shouldn't hire me. Like it is not the right fit. And why not just say that? You know how powerful that is if you say to someone,
Amazing.
you know what, I I've heard you today, and then repeat. This is and I have to tell you, as much as I'd like to do this, I'm not sure if I were in your shoes, I'd hire me. I have someone in mind. I'm going to have you should call them. They're like blown away by it. Like,
Yeah.
what is that? But I think I'm not going to have fun on this assignment. We don't connect. I don't like your apartment and I don't understand it. And why did you buy it in the first place is what I'm thinking. But they have to sell it. But I don't want to be the one selling it because it's, it's, there's someone else that could sell it that might be a better fit.
I almost wonder if you've ever turned down a listing or a buyer and had them. So because again, I think back to the times where I've worked with salespeople or service people who are vying for business, and the number of times somebody has said, "I'm not the right fit for you, but I know someone else,"
Mhm.
is maybe one time in my life, but probably zero. I can't think of any instance, but it is such an important, again, it goes back to this honesty thing.
Mhm.
My question was going to be, I wonder if you've ever turned someone down who has then gone on to refer business to you, even though you didn't necessarily help them. If that hasn't happened, I'm sure it will happen at some point.
Yes. And you know what else happened that I think could be helpful for any listeners is there was a for sale by owner not willing to pay a fee at all. He's not going to pay $1. But my neighbor wanted to see the apartment. So I said to him, do you mind, can my neighbor come tonight at 7 o'clock after work to see your apartment? He said, do you understand? Let me repeat this again. You are not going to get paid $1. I am not paying any commission to any agent. I said, I have heard you loud and clear. Do you mind if I just bring her in at 7 o'clock? He said, why would you do this? And I said, well, number one, she's asked to see it. Number two, she wants my opinion. And number three, if she buys it, you will never forget me.
Yeah, good point.
And so I went in and met them. And my neighbor called me. She worked at McGraw-Hill, and she said she was like 45 minutes late. And I called her and she said, "I'm so sorry. I had a client come in. I'm not going to be able to make it." Well, you know what that for sale by owner.
Sure, sure. I
I
know what
mean,
you're doing. I see what you're doing. Yeah,
oh
that kind
my
of thing.
God, I was mortified, mortified. So I made her get on the phone with him. I'm like, "Okay, you need to talk to him right now because he's going to think I made you up."
Yeah.
So they talked. So then he left a message on my phone that night at midnight, and he said, "We want to give you the listing." I was shocked.
Wow.
And I said, "Why would you do that?" He said, "You were so brutally honest. Like we couldn't believe how honest you were that you." And I said, "Well, the truth is," so then my neighbor got mad that I got the listing. I said, "Don't worry, I carved your name out. If you buy it, you don't have to pay me a penny." But she didn't buy it and we sold it. And there was another example. With him paying us our fee, he still made more money. So I really do believe for sale by owners should call every one of you on this call.
I love that because those are expireds for sale by owners. Those are tough calls, and you do deal with some abuse when you make those phone calls. But I think that's also a good thing to go through, just to get some battle wounds, because you realize, oh, that didn't kill me. Somebody yelled at me, told me to F off, or whatever they may have said. They may just hang up, or I said no agents, or whatever.
Yeah.
It happens, and then you realize, oh, I survived that. It's okay. And I authentically tried to help this person. They weren't interested. Not the end of the world. And what most for sale by owners do is they inflate, as you know, I'm not telling this to you, of course, but to our listeners, for anyone that is scared. For sale by owners tend to inflate their property price without realizing it. They don't know they're doing it. They think it's worth X. And by the way, we all do this. I think even realtors can do this. And they're probably not going to sell it because they've inflated the price. So at some point, I think the stats are, and I don't have them in front of me, is that the vast majority of for sale by owners end up hiring someone anyway at some point, and it
Yeah.
ends up selling for more if they hire a good agent. So that's not really a great pitch. I don't think somebody would be receptive to saying those kind of things on the phone. Did you know that if you hire me, you're actually going to sell it for more? They're not going to believe you. But
Right.
this idea of radical honesty, is, oh my gosh, I just love it. I'm curious if you're willing to share any of the book that you're currently working on, because now I'm super interested in what this book is going to be. Do you mind just giving our audience a little taste of what's coming?
It's really just it's no surprise, just it's I don't even I sometimes I think, why am I doing this? Because I'm just telling stories from early on my life journey, if you will. And what I do hope that a reader gathers after reading it is you start to see I'm very consistent. So what I did when I was 14, 22, 40s, 50s, it hasn't changed. Like the recipe is pretty consistent, and it doesn't matter where you are in life. It's just caring about the other person and being brave enough to ask the question, and also being aware of your weaknesses, because we're all not Superman or Superwomen. We're just people, and we're flawed, and we're not so special, and we're not, it's okay. Like, just accept who you are, and do the best you can, and try to be the best version of you, but care about other people. And you don't need to bump them and step on them to make yourself feel better and get ahead. And if you actually don't do that, somehow you end up in a better spot.
Yeah, well, I agree with all of it. I have three final questions for you. Three things I wanted to get to but forgot, and so I just remembered. So I want to get your perspective on these. You are very active in the community. You participate. You give back. You volunteer at the local level. I don't know if you also do the state or the national level. I suspect those opportunities come your way as well. How so? I'm going to preface before I get to my question by saying I avoided really being part of our local association, and giving back in that way. For many, many years, I've been doing, I've been in this industry since 2011, or yeah, somewhere around there. And anyway, I thought, to be sort of a bit honest myself, I thought, well, if I do get involved and I serve on some committees, well, I'll be doing good, and that's a good thing. And I'll be contributing, and that's good. But also, maybe more people will hear about our firm just by nature of me being part of this, committee. Mm-hmm. And maybe that would ultimately help me indirectly in recruiting. Not that that was the primary reason. Well, I've been participating at the local level for about 3 years now. It really has not helped me in recruiting because, but I continue to do it. And now I'm even getting more and more involved for one reason. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Which is that I get a lot of fulfillment from participating at the local level, being part of the industry, being in community with other agents that are trying to make things better. And even if it never results in somebody coming to our firm going, "Oh, I know you from the association, I should join your firm," which, by the way, has never happened and probably never will. But I am so happy to be around other realtors who are all trying to, to do the best they can and do the best for other realtors. And I'm curious if you get a tremendous amount of fulfillment in the same way that I just mentioned for being part of giving back, to the local associations.
I do. You can probably tell I'm a storyteller. I love stories. I think that when stories are being shared and told, there's value in those stories. So when I'm able to get agents up on stage to do role playing, by the way, if we could film them, we could have a sitcom, because some of them are hilarious. And one of my favorite, which I'm going to share because I don't want anyone on this call doing some of this, it's hilarious. I said to someone, "What do you take if you're invited into someone's home? You've never met them before, and you made a cold call, for an example, and they invited you in. What do you take with you?" And here are some of the answers I've gotten. One said, "I take flowers." I said, "Flowers, interesting. Okay, flowers." Someone else said, "A bottle of wine." Okay, you take a bottle of wine. Someone else said candy. Someone else said a pitch packet. So I get them all. And then I get them to come up on stage, and I say, "Let's role play this." So you've never met this person. You knock on the door, you ring the bell, they open it, and you say, "Here's some flowers," or "Here's a bottle of wine." It's like, it's awkward. They
Yeah,
don't,
it is awkward. Yeah.
why are you bringing them they don't know you. It's just, now, personally, this may be shocking, but I do not give closing gifts. Never. I feel that's awkward. I do not. I feel like I've just sold an apartment, and you can get a good size check, and I'm going to give them a bowl or a keychain.
Yeah,
It's just
right.
awkward. Like,
Yeah.
I don't do it. I know a lot of people do, and good luck. And I think it's fantastic. Keep doing it. I'm not suggesting that you don't, but for me, it doesn't feel right. However, they get stuff from me for 10 years in a row. Like, we've closed on the apartment, and I am known for sending handmade cards and unique gifts, but I don't go to Tiffany's and buy 200 anything. I think if I sold your house and you're a pianist, in fact, this happened. A woman was a pianist, and I found a vintage scarf with piano keys on it. And I bought it and wrote a note and sent it to her. So you have to really, another one's a golfer, and I found a bronze little golf statue, and it's on his fireplace. So I'm thoughtful and once I sell you something, you don't get rid of me. So you will hear from me consistently throughout the years.
Curious, how do you stay in touch with clients in between transactions so that they don't forget about how wonderful you are?
That's probably my, it's what I do. Like Halloween was just here. So I went through my list, and I'm like, all right, let me look who has kids between the age of, 2 and 12. And this year I had custom cookies made and mailed them to the kids. And all I write on the card, by the way, is boo. There's no compass, like call me for, if
The
you,
best compliment is your referrals.
oh, yeah, none of that ever, ever, ever. So another year on Halloween, I had custom little pumpkins made with the child's name embroidered on it so they could put the candy in it. And then I get photos of their kids with the cookies or the basket and it's, it just, I find small businesses and I like to support small businesses. There's a peanut butter company that has, and I had custom boxes made and put the peanut butter in there. And I said, the market's nuts, spread the love, and a little handwritten note, but never like call me for a free market analysis. By the way,
Right.
I think I want to start charging for market analysis. Don't you think that'd be
Ooh,
hilarious?
interesting. I
That'd
like
be
that.
like everyone's like, here, call me for a free market analysis. I might send a mail around, say, for $1,000, I'll tell you what your apartment's worth. Wouldn't that be funny? I wonder if it's legal.
I don't
I
know. It's an interesting idea. I know that people don't value free things like they do things they pay for. I mean, that's, I picked up on something that I'm sure our audience picked up on is you said, and I, this is such a great small thing that I want to make sure doesn't get overlooked by our audience. You said, thanks, our Halloween was coming up. So I went through my CRM or my database and I wanted to find out who has children that are between the ages of 2 and 12. I wonder what percentage of agents even have that information. And I'll bet you it's under 2% of the realtors out there have that information on their clients. And that is important, critical information to be able to think of a reason to stay in touch, right? If you're just going, well, they sold their home 4 years ago, maybe they're in the market to, maybe I should reach out and see what their plans are. Okay, fine. But what are you going to do year 2, year 3, where you're like, they're not moving? You have to have reasons to reach out, and the more data you have, the more information you have, allows you to think, be fun and creative, and go, oh, it's back to school time. Maybe I'll put a little, kids who are entering, grade school. I know that, so maybe I'll be able to, put a little care package or whatever. It could be anything.
Yes. Yes.
Knowing what holidays people celebrate, right? If you're going to be doing things for the December holidays, there's several of them, and of course in New York City, there's so many different cultures melding together. You can't just blanket send out a Hanukkah card or a Christmas card. I mean, you need to know these things.
Okay, you just struck something. So here, there are two categories. You're absolutely 100% correct. If just like you need to really study that building, like if you're at a cocktail party and they bring up that address, you should say built 1927, 46 units, majority 2-bedroom, blah, blah, blah. When you have your buyers, I learned this when I took a acting class years ago. The teacher asked me a question. They said, the character, was she a vegan? I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, going through the play, it didn't talk about that. And he said, you need to know everything about that person. You need to know, would they shop at Kmart or would they shop at Bergdorf? Would they ride a bike or would they get a private car? Would they go hiking? Would they go to the theater? You need to, and that's what I do with my clients. So if I meet a client, I think to myself, I'm asking questions and learning who they are and what's important to them. I watch if they drink coffee or tea. If they don't, you go out, no, they only drink tea, you don't send them coffee. If they have pets, write the pets' names down. One year I had custom things done with the painting of their animal on it and the name, and sent that out. So whatever it is, like you listen. I had one client that was allergic to nuts. Well, don't send them the peanut butter, right? So
or send them a EpiPen if you're going to send them a peanut butter on top of it.
Exactly. Yeah, some medicine. So anyway, it is important to even, here's another thing. My cards, I have different cards. There's, let's say a Warhol. I may not send that to a certain group. I may send a foil stamped, beautiful, elegant stationery to one and a really artsy to another. They don't get the same thing. My clients do not get the same stuff because they're different people.
because you know enough about them to be able to compartmentalize them into or individualize them, I guess is the better way to say it, to say, okay, this person's into this, and everybody wants to feel special. Everyone wants to feel like a celebrated individual, and it sounds like that's part of how you operate your business. Boy, you've said so much. I just have one final question. I was going to ask you about 2023, but I don't want to do that because I have a different question I wanted to ask, which is what's the biggest mistake you made in your career? Not necessarily the biggest,
Mhm.
maybe you lost a listing, or I'm not talking about that, but what's something that if you could go back to your earlier self as you started in real estate, what's advice that you would have given yourself that maybe you didn't know back then?
I allowed my business to drive me instead of me driving my business. And what I mean by that is I mentioned to you the volume early on with the FISBOs, and I didn't stop to really plan and pivot earlier on. I could have gotten to a certain point earlier on if I had taken the time to methodically think about where I wanted to be. Instead, I was kind of buried in the weeds in the trenches, and I just kept plugging along without stopping to make adjustments. So I
So like
think it's
working in the business versus working on the business kind of scenario.
correct. Correct. That's what I'd say. If I had to do over again, I would have done. I could have done that better.
And I think it's a wonderful answer for the time of year we're at, because I think this is a time when often eh, sort of activity slows down, transactions slow down, holidays are here. They're taking a lot of our attention, and it's a good time to reflect, I think, on sort of where we want to go for 2023 and beyond. But just to sort of, I think that's a great point for anyone out there that's immersed in their business. Make sure you carve some time out every so often to really reflect on, because you are running your own business.
Right. And here, can I give a couple other tips?
Please.
One, you're running your own business. So one, invest in the business. I find agents don't want to spend money investing in their business. That's crazy. What kind of business doesn't like put money and capital up? Number two, everyone on this call, especially with 2023 coming, save money.
Yes.
Save your money. Because what happens is when the market gets tough, the agents that were able to prepare and have a nest egg have less pressure when those deals fall apart and buyers walk. They don't freak out. You know, so many agents, I always say, like, you see them, and sellers and buyers, they need a grounded person. They don't need someone on the edge that's worried about paying their rent or their mortgage, and they're so focused on the commission that it kills deals, and you will lose the trust if you're not prepared. And you should never be thinking about the commission check. In fact, I tease agents. That is probably, you can see it. It's almost like their commission check
Yeah.
is on their forehead, and all they care about is money. Stop caring about the money and care about the assignment. Just, I see the end before the beginning. So when I'm working on something, I keep my eye on the end result, and I visualize a lot. And the other tip I'll give an agent is decide where you want to go, visualize where you're going to be, and then work backwards how you're going to get there. So for an example, one day I woke up and said, I want to be a townhouse specialist. Well, I hadn't sold any townhouses, but I walked in the office. They said, we're going to be townhouse specialists. Oh, okay. How are we going to do that? Well, let's just do something different and be creative with it. So I ended up doing little books that told stories about the townhouse, and it caught on. And within a period of time, I was getting some listings in townhouses. But I again dove in and studied and became kind of the specialist in that pocket. So you have to put the time in.
Yeah, and I think That's a really, really great point. We're talking about sort of proactive thought about where you want to be, irrespective of where you are today, right? Because today, well, I'm going back in your history, but today, that one day you weren't a townhouse specialist, and you said, "But I'd
Correct.
like to be." So you didn't wait for townhouses to come to you. You figured out a way to actually build that skill set, and that's it's being proactive. And we live in such a reactive world now, where our phones are demanding our attention every few seconds with notifications, and our clients are demanding it every so often with texts and emails. And it's easy to not be as proactive and to be really good at being reactive, and that's good too. But then to be able to step back and say, who do I want to be? Where do I want to be? How many people do I want to help? What kind of people do I want to help? And then, work, like you were saying, working backwards.
Yeah.
Boy, I could talk, Vickey, I could talk to you all day, and I wish I could. And I know that you are busier than me, so I am going to let you get on with all of your busyness. Because, and by the way, this is again speaks. I'll bookend this with another thing about Vickey's character. If you go to her Compass page, you see a list of accomplishments that are really, it's about a mile long of just incredible feats. She has not mentioned one of those today, because I suspect not that important to her, and also just not who she is. And I really respect that. I have interviewed people on the show who do have some pretty impressive credits as well, who love for other people to know about those credits. And I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with that either, but I really love the fact that you have this, you have a tremendous track record, and that you don't feel the need to share that, which is, again, probably goes to your success as well. So anyway, Vickey, on behalf of our audience, we want to thank you for being on our show. You gave so many unbelievable tips and advice. I was almost thinking during it, I'm like, boy, if I could have Vickey on like once a month giving these tips, that would be amazing. But regardless, even in this episode, you provided so much value. So on behalf of the audience, we say thank you. And also on behalf of Vickey and myself, we want to thank all the listeners, and our viewers. This is, we are so grateful that you made it to the end of the show. We're hope that this was helpful. I know that it was, but let Vickey know, Vickey, if anyone out there wants to share their appreciation, what's the best way that another agent might be able to say thanks?
Probably email me at vbarron@compass.com.
We'll put that in the show notes too. So if you want to say hi to Vickey and say thanks, and I really encourage people to do that, because she spoke from the heart today. She is an again, I didn't really read her credits, which are unbelievable. If I were to read them, you would be paying attention to every single word she says, because she is a very, very important person in the New York industry for real estate. So Vickey, thank you. And we will, one last thing. We ask all of our listeners and viewers just to do one thing, which will help us continue to grow, because we don't spend money too much on marketing, pretty much no marketing money. But the best way you can help us rather is by telling a friend. So think of one other realtor that could benefit from hearing this unbelievably candid and authentic interview with Vickey, and somebody that just needs to hear a couple tips that might turn their business around or get them to the next level. 2023, it's going to be a difficult time for all of us. So let's share the good here and send this over to Vickey. The best way you could do that is just go ahead, send them over to our website, keepingitrealpod.com. Every one of our episodes can be streamed right from the website. They don't even have to be a podcast person, or of course they can always subscribe to the podcast, but tell a friend. That would be one good deed of the day. And it would really make me happy, because then we can reach more people. So thank you in advance for that. Vickey, thanks for being on the show, and we will see everybody on the next episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the time. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.